How should I handle conflicts as a Christian?
Oh, if you thought that you weren't going to have any by being a Christian, you are sorely mistaken. Um, Especially if you happen to run into religious people, they seem to love it. I don't know why. But uh, my friend always says that peace actually doesn't come by avoiding conflict. It actually comes through having tools to address it. And so I hate conflict. It is not in my nature to want to have a difficult conversation, and be very easy for me to run from that. And God has done a lot of work in my heart and really challenged me as I've listened to the Holy Spirit around some of these, trends or like habits in my life, and exposed that they're not from God. They're maybe inherited from, family, genealogies. And so God has really done a lot of work in my heart around conflict, and actually learning to embrace conflict as the goal of conflict is intimacy. It's actually, you can have a deeper friendship with somebody on the other side of conflict. Now, that might be different than when I was a kid. We'd go out and we'd beat each other up in some alley. That was my childhood. And then on the other side of it, we're like best friends. I don't know why that works with guys. And I'm not saying you should do that, but with people, if we have the tools to actually navigate conflict on the other side, you can have deeper friendship than even if you hadn't had the conflict. And so I would say that you don't even know if you love someone unless you've been through conflict. It is until it's been tested, because if you have just, you say I love them, but you haven't actually had to work through any major misunderstanding or disagreement or some disappointment, then you really don't even know. It's totally, and if the moment you have that you bail, then now you don't love them. So I would say, what are the ways you can handle conflict is, number one is, when these are going on, stop and get God's perspective. Don't just presume that God is on your side. That is like over and over and over again, people get in trouble in the Bible because they thought God was on their side, but actually he's not on anybody's side. We need to get on his side. There's been many times my wife and I, as we're working through some disagreement, we'll stop and pray, and God will say, you're both wrong and you both need to apologize. And so just, questioning the presumption that you're always right, and in these situations, and asking God's perspective. I think being willing to have difficult conversations is a demonstration of love. Love corrects, love rebukes, love challenges. It does not just tolerate and don't say anything. If I love somebody, I want the highest and best for them. I want them to walk in the fullness of what God has for them. I am not just going to sit there and do nothing when they destroy their life or make horrible decisions. And Jesus didn't do that for us, right? He came down, he came and engaged with us so that we can find freedom. In the same way, just being passive and doing nothing and running from conflict isn't love. It actually is, if I didn't care about you, I just write you off. I wouldn't be taking the time to have a difficult conversation with you if I didn't love you. And so just know that if you and I are having a difficult conversation and I'm bringing some challenge or some area that I feel like you need to grow, it's because I love you. Otherwise, I wouldn't even waste my time. So I think, again, engaging with people, being willing to bring truth, do it with God's heart, God's perspective, coming in, asking questions, recognize you may have a total wrong presumption, right? Maybe what you think is happening actually isn't. So there's a lot more on this that we can dive into, but those would be the main things. Like, you are going to have conflict. It's part of the deal. People are people. They're on a journey. Even if they're followers of Jesus, doesn't mean they're perfect. They're going to have issues. But if we're really going to be like Jesus and we're going to commit to people, we're going to dig in these situations. We're not just going to drop people. And like Jesus, even when people betray us, right? Jesus is like, man, you can even see in his prayer in John 17, he had compassion even for Judas. It's like, man, it would have been better if he had not even been born. Like, this one that betrayed me. And you can even see him on the cross. People are killing him. And he's like, forgive them, Father. They don't know what to do. I mean, like, how good are you at being betrayed? Like, how good are you at responding in the fruit of the Spirit when people are treating you badly? And so if we can't do that, then, man, our Christianity is worth very little. And, Jesus said how easy it is to love those who love you. but I call you to love your enemies. So again, I think for all of us, we got to get a lot more resilience and toughen up and say, you know what, just because somebody doesn't fulfill my expectations or treat me the way that I want does not mean I can throw a tantrum, but it means I need to actually engage and love them and journey with them. So I can grow and they can grow as well. There's a bunch more Bible verses about it. If you're struggling to hear from God on what he might be asking you to do, I want to encourage you to check out my course on hearing God's voice and really develop this discipline of getting before the Lord and not just monologuing at him, but listening and hearing his voice and obeying wholeheartedly to do everything he's called you to do.